5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Alrighty. Welcome to landlordsjournal.com on Sunday, what's today? The 26th of September 2010. We're going to have a little bit of a shorter show today, but we do have a topic of interest that we're going to discuss amongst ourselves. We would like to give our individual opinions regarding negotiating rent and deposits on a property, pros and cons of doing that, maybe when you do it, when you don't want to do it, why you would want to do it, why you would not want to do it, and some of the scenarios associated with those things. I think personally, keeping in mind that all properties are different and circumstances are different. We came in, somebody approached us this week about doing that for one of our properties, and at the top of my head it doesn't seem like such a great idea, but we can go around and give our viewpoints on that. Donnie, do you want to start, or John, do you want to start? Since
Donnie can go ahead and start, because I'm going to update this.
Okay.
Well,
just get the ball rolling.
okay, yeah, just kind of get the ball rolling. I guess to kind of put it into perspective, people in general, people who rent, often don't have a lot of financial resources to be able to have a big amount of cash on hand at the outset. That's commonly what we find is that they have the startup of being able to pay their deposit and pay the first month's rent is often a barrier for them, and sometimes we have been we've been open to working on that depending on the situation, and sometimes we haven't, and I think I haven't really regretted any of our decisions so far. I think I think you have to weigh what the market is at the time, and how much interest you have in a place, and what the costs are of not having someone in there. How long has the place been empty, and what the utilities, what the forecast is for the utilities in the next few months. Are you looking at getting somebody in the month of December, and they're going to be able to pay for the utilities through the cold months, or are we talking about in the summertime when utilities aren't an issue, and we can wait a little while longer and see who we can get. It seems like my thought, I'll give you my thought on it. My thought is, it seems like we had the best success with tenants we have been able to get a deposit from the beginning. They seem to be the more stable and more stick-to-itive tenants. It's kind of it seems like a paradox. The people that we make that you think they may stay if you give them a break. They give you more problems and don't stick around. But I have a limited experience, very limited experience with it. But I think we're best served when we can get a deposit rather than negotiating a deposit. Certainly, with everything else being equal, and probably in most circumstances, if we have to weigh the benefits and risks, usually I'd probably come out on the side of waiting till we can find somebody that has it together enough to do that. What about you, John?
I think it depends on the situation. I think it depends on the situation. I think it, like you, I agree that it depends on the state that we're in. If it's coming close to winter, and we have, as we know, as winter approaches, if the places are empty, it ends up costing us a lot more money. It costs us to keep the heat on, to keep the water running and the electricity on and all that kind of stuff. So we have an expense there, and the closer it gets to that time period, the more we have to give in to taking a lower rent or negotiating on the deposit. We don't have, we don't have much of a leg to stand on.
And it's even more than just an expense. There's also a risk of a catastrophic expense,
right,
of a cold snap when we're out of town and your pipes burst.
Right, which we've had that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we've had that happen too on 2 of our properties. Luckily, one of them someone was living there. The other one was completely empty. Luckily, it wasn't catastrophic, but it could have been. It could have been.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been. But that takes a toll on it. But typically, if all things were equal, that it's not a good idea to negotiate on the rent, and it's not a good idea to accept a tenant without a deposit. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's setting yourself up for disappointment and problems. I know that we had the ones that we have required a deposit, and we did our due diligence. They've been more successful. We've had more success with those people that have fulfilled the requirements that we put out. They fulfilled them, and that was it. We've had more success with that than being lenient on the deposit and negotiating on the rent and all that kind of stuff. Which is not to say that we're not setting the bar too high as far as the rent goes. Maybe the market's is telling us that it's too high. If we set the rent for a place and that no one's biting on it, maybe the rent's too high. That it might not be. We might be just being stubborn, and we might have to lower the rent just because of that. Mm-hmm. Because it's what the market won't bear. $650 or $700 or whatever. The market won't bear it. It won't bear it. And if we lowered it, of course we're going to have a better response rate. So the higher the rent, we're going to have, if we lowered it to $450 or $500, $350, $100, we're going to be able to be more picky. Mm-hmm. We're going to be able to be more choosy. Exactly, we're going to be able to be more choosy with who we get in there. The higher the rent, the less we're not going to have a big of a pool. We're not going to have a big pool of people to draw from. Mm-hmm. We start lowering the rent, we're going to be able to be more choosy. We're going to be able to be, they might be able to fulfill those requirements. So again, it just depends on the market, what the market will bear. And I'm thinking we might have it priced too. One of the properties in particular, we might have it priced too high. I don't know. I know that it's funny, and there might be a reason for this, and I'm starting to learn. A lot of times when you're renting apartments, like the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom will be almost the same as the 1-bedroom apartment. Will be the rent difference is not proportionate to the size and whatnot. So we rent a 1-bedroom for almost $500 a month. Mm-hmm. So I think we realistically, or in theory, 3 bedrooms should be much higher, which we're renting for $650. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe we should just rent for $550. Maybe we should rent for $500. I don't know. You know, there might not be that big. There might not be as big of a. What's the word I'm looking for? There might be not
a pool of potential tenants.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is if we lowered the rent, we're going to get a lot more people that are interested. We're going to be able to be more choosy. I think that from my experience, you know, because on the property, the 2 houses that we had that were 1 bedrooms that we thought we would get half of what we're getting. We thought we could rent for $350. We were for $475, and we were just able to choose. I mean, we were able to choose who we wanted in there. We were able to be very, very finicky on that, and we talked about it, and we were able to. I mean, we just had people left and right coming in. I mean, it was priced perfectly. We priced that perfectly on those. This one, I don't think we're pricing it right. I think that the reason we're not getting the response that we're pricing it too high, or, you know, something's going on. We might be able to hold out. I don't know. We probably can hold out and get someone in there if we hold out long enough. But what's the cost? Well, how much is it going to cost? Is it going to go empty another month, another 2 months? That's going to cost us $1,000 at least. If we know, I don't know. That's something we need to talk about. But the question of should we negotiate on the rent and the deposit, I think no. I think you just need to have it priced right to begin with.
Right,
I don't think you should give them the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to negotiate with you on this, because on down the road it lessens you don't have as much power over it. You don't have as much control of the situation. And then when they're in there 6 months, they're like, well, hell, he lowered the rent $100 and he didn't make me pay a deposit, so
I'm going to be 2 weeks late.
I'm going to be 2 weeks late. He probably won't say anything about it either. He's a nice guy. You know,
I can get away with this.
So you kind of lose control of the situation. So
right.
My thoughts on it are you need to have it priced right to begin with, and you should not negotiate, and if so, it needs to be very limited, because you lose power. You lose the power, and you give it to them when they think that, oh, he'll do this, so he probably will do this as well. He'll probably let me be a week late or 2 weeks late, or I busted down that door and it was my fault. He'll probably go ahead and pay for it and not say anything. I just think you lose control of the situation. You lose control of the tenant. You lose control of your property. I just think you don't have the control in it. But that's my thoughts on it. What's your turn, Bob?
I agree.
Well, you had an interesting point earlier, John, how, speaking of this particular property, the person wanted to negotiate, and you had a great comeback was, you know, if you want these things done, we'll have these things done, but the rent and the deposit is not going to change.
Right.
And that shut them up.
Right.
You know, immediately.
Right.
Because that would be better for us, you know.
Well, actually, my thought on that, if somebody says, oh, well, this needs some work, well, we've priced it based on the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We've priced it based on what it is. If you're interested in improvements, we can probably renegotiate the rent to a higher amount. But that's usually how I address it. Because people want to come in. It's the car sales. You come in, you say, and you see the car you like, and you say, well, there's a scratch on that, and the tire needs I probably could use some tires in a couple months.
That's why we priced it to sale.
And that's why you priced it at the price you priced it. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have to be aggressive in countering, I think. I don't think you sit back and and start negotiating over paint. Sometimes you go into a property and this needs done. I'm going to go ahead and list it, and then I'll work on it. And then you rent it before you've had a chance to even make the improvements, or you get a very hot bite. And sometimes I think it's appropriate to negotiate